All right, at 6:30, I will call this public safety meeting to order. Roll call has been taken. I need a motion to approve the public safety agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Evans, second by Foodie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Foodie, second by Evans. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First agenda, we have citizens wishing to be heard, creation of a poultry ordinance. So if anyone wants to talk, please make sure you sign in and come up and state your name and your address. And we have a total of 15 minutes for public comment. So
I'll be quick.
make it short,
Yes,
so
sir.
everybody gets a chance to talk. So we don't want to be here an hour, so.
My name is Ashley Sigmund. I live here in Juneau. We've lived here for about a year and a half, very much enjoying the city. Good evening, committee members. As some of you may know from the Facebook post from the 15th, I am here to present a proposed change to the city ordinance for the keeping of chickens. In the past, I personally have owned 350 egg-laying chickens at a time. So my suggestions and desires come from a place of very clear understanding and personal experience. In my research, I have found 8 different surrounding cities and villages that allow the keeping of chickens. This is certainly not an exhaustive list. I would think that referring to these other ordinances would help save our court counsel some time with ordinance language for the city of Juneau. The list is as follows: Waupun, Milwaukee, Oshkosh, Kleinman, Columbus, Neosho, Oconomowoc, and Watertown. Some of my suggestions to add to an ordinance would be: the number of birds could depend on lot size. I would think that 4 to 6 hens per family would be a good number to start with, open to negotiation. Fencing and housing, there should definitely be fencing for the chickens. We don't need chickens running all over the city of Juneau because nobody wants that. Also, I think that the housing should consist of a roof and roosts for the chickens, as well as a locking door to protect them from predators. Manure, it's usually, if you have only 4 to 6 hens, you're not going to have much more manure than you would have from a mid to large sized dog, probably less. And my suggestion would be dispose of it in the same manner that we have for dog manure removal, okay? Breeds, I would suggest possibly putting into the ordinance some suggestions about having brown or black chickens. They tend to be heavier, they're not as flighty, they're not gonna fly up over fences as easily as a white chicken that are smaller and take flight much easier, trust me, I know. Also, I think maybe something that should be taken into consideration would be your yard size would possibly determine eligibility. Obviously, if you have a 1/16 of an acre, you're not really going to have enough room for your chickens to be able to be fenced, you know. So I would say that yard size should have something to do with it. Enforcement, I've been thinking about this a lot. As for enforcement, I feel like further discussion is warranted. Could our building inspector maybe play a role, or maybe the planning commission? Our police department possibly already has enough to worry about. Just a statement. Lastly, as we see inflation skyrocket and food shortages increasing in almost every area, feeding our families is becoming more and more difficult. Having access to our own eggs would relieve, even in a very small way, this current struggle. I did bring along an article that I ran across yesterday that addresses the challenges of the current market. I and my neighbors would greatly appreciate your consideration of this ordinance. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you. I only had 4 copies, so you can share that.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right, anybody else? Anybody got any questions?
Yes, I do, John. You spoke about lot size and whatever. What is, you must have some ideas on that, because I know you live on a very spacious lot.
I do live on a very spacious lot, so honestly, I haven't really put a ton of thought into that. I figured that maybe because you're the committee that, you know, determines this, it would probably be better coming from you about lot size than me. Yes, I do have a very large yard.
When you looked at other ordinances from other communities, what restrictions, suggestions are?
A lot of them were similar to the things that I listed, so like the 4 to 6 hen limit, obviously fencing, proper housing for the birds was obviously something that was an ongoing theme, but most of what I talked about was pretty much repeated in all of the other ordinances.
Because in the wintertime, you need heat, right? I mean, you see heat lamps in there?
I would probably put a heat lamp in for my birds just because there would only be 4 to 6 of them. You know, when we had 300, they were fine, you
Sure.
know, but with only 4 to 6
Well,
hens.
you'd almost need heat out the
Yes,
coop,
and a
right?
heat lamp would be more than sufficient. You wouldn't need to, you know, actually run heating out there. They're outdoor animals, they would be fine.
Thank you for coming, you're very well prepared.
Yeah, it sounded
Thank you.
good presentation, so.
Thank you.
And it's, you know, it's not something you want an extension cord going out to the scoop, you'd have to.
Absolutely not, no. I
Right.
would definitely run power out there.
Right, power and stuff like
Yeah.
that, so.
I actually thought about using the back part of my garden shed because it's already there and it butts up to the place that I want to fence in for them. So it, for my yard, for me personally, it's kind of perfect.
Okay.
So I can't speak for the others, you know, that were possibly interested,
Right.
but.
Okay, anybody got another question?
I do believe lot size plays a lot into it, you know,
I
if
think
you
so
gotta,
too, yeah.
you get down into some of the older districts where you only got a 40-foot wide lot, then you're gonna have odors, you know, and neighbors complaining about that kind of thing.
The odor thing, if you don't clean up for 2 months, yes, it's going to smell.
Yeah.
But if you only have 4 to 6 hens, and especially if you're using shavings and things like that, the smell is going to be literally non-existent, especially if you're caring for them the way that you should be. So,
I know, speaking for one of the other older persons we have on the council there, her concern was, is this more of a hobby or is it really do you really come out ahead with 4 to 6 hens versus paying for the chicken feed and what have you versus the product that you receive from the hens?
I feel like yes, you would, because a chicken will lay 2 eggs every 3 days. So if I have 6 hens, that is definitely helpful. And with eggs priced at, you know, $4.50 a dozen, yeah, it definitely comes out. You know, I have farm friends that I would buy my feed from, so I'm not going to be going to a feed mill and getting pre-mixed feed. I'm going to, you know, buy it from my sister. So for me, yes, it's very cost effective.
And you mentioned enforcement. One of them was building inspectors. Who
Mhm.
else was another option? Did you?
Or the planning commission, I just thought it should be part of the conversation. You know, I spoke with Chief Beal, and, you know, one of his concerns on our conversation, you know, they do have a lot on their plate already, and I don't necessarily know that we need to add chickens to their, you know, list of things that they need to do. So I am open to having a conversation about who could be the quote-unquote enforcement behind that. Maybe, you know, they would be the one to write the ticket, you know, for someone not, you know, following the guidelines, but, you know, who's gonna go and inspect? I don't think that that should have to be on the police department, in my opinion.
I know building inspectors are stretched too.
It didn't talk to the building inspector, so.
They are stretched. But you had a very good report, a lot of good points.
Thank you.
Now, is this just for eggs or they raise them for butchering?
I would not be interested in doing meat
No,
birds.
just
No,
eggs.
just eggs, yes.
Okay.
I don't have the space for that.
Right. Huh? And no roosters?
Yes,
No
yes,
roosters?
it's really important. No roosters. They really mean. No roosters.
Just another thing to wake you up in the morning.
Thank you for that point.
Is the average life of a hen 4 years for laying?
It depends on who you talk to. A lot of people call their hens after a year. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd run them a year and a half. You know that they're ready to be culled when they start slowing down. And with 4 to 6 hens, you're gonna know who's just there for the snacks and who's actually earning her keep. So, yeah. And we have friends that have butchering equipment, so I would just honestly cull them once they're done and get new ones and then just make soup chickens out of my other hens. So.
Okay. Satisfied? Everybody? All right, well, thanks,
Thank you
sir.
for your time.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for coming down. We'll take that under consideration.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, moving on. David, the police chief report.
Okay, you got the March and April police report before you. I guess probably the big thing that we talked about is crossing guards, being that we have people in the audience. There may be people that would be interested in grabbing a stop sign and being part of the crossing guard. Right now, we need to fill 2 full-time positions, and then we're always looking for fill-in people for those positions. But starting with summer school, there will not be a crossing guard up at Quick Trip. It's gonna have to be the 4-way stop.
Yeah, 4-way stop up there. So.
I know it's not a good solution,
Busy.
but there's nobody to do it. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And about that, because we had 2 of our crossing guards in the past year retire. We had a guy that was willing to fill in, but when he signed up for it, it was just to fill in, and it turned into full-time.
Yeah.
And he has other obligations, and he said he just can't do it. He was on the verge of quitting altogether.
Yeah.
And we asked him if he'd stay on part-time at least to help out, and he agreed to that. But with his departure, we just don't have enough. So
Okay.
that intersection for summer school won't have a crossing guard, and that's in the morning and at noontime for summer school.
Okay.
Hopefully come fall, we'll have some people that come forward. You know, we're flexible. If you can just do mornings, just do
Yeah.
mornings. Somebody can just do afternoons. It doesn't have to be both.
Right.
We'd be happy with just splitting it. But yeah, that's really where we're at. And, you know, after that, if we lose any other spots, we'll be forced to put flashing lights up, and that's what the kids will have to push on the side of the street to cross and go from there.
What intersections do we all cover?
We
It's-
do the Quick Trip intersection up there.
And Fairfield?
And then down at Fairfield and West Oak Grove by the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And then over on South
In
Street
front
in
of school.
Fairfield, and then in front of the school on Western Avenue.
I'm just wondering, Quick Trip is like way busier than, but where do you pull from?
Well, it's very busy. The only thing that we have going for us is the 4-way stop.
4-way stop there.
You know, it's dangerous when they come out of that parking lot there, because they come out at an angle. But down on South Street by Fairfield, with the increase of employees now down in the industrial park, that road is busy. And it's a lot of times during the afternoon when school lets out, so, and or in the morning when they're coming to school. So that used to be a slow intersection in years past, but not anymore since the
And like you
businesses.
said, at least you have the 4 stops of Quick Trip stop signs.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a mailing going out in the utility bill, so people will see that for the ad, and hopefully we generate some response. You know, a lot of people get excited about it and post their concerns on Facebook, but then nobody comes and picks up an application, so
Sure.
that's where we need people to come forward, so.
Okay.
I think that's what I have for monthly report, except for, of course, we got the beer and liquor license to approve, and then a few other discussion items.
I guess back to I feel that the most serious or dangerous intersection is probably on 26 down there by the restaurant with kids crossing there.
Absolutely.
Is there any way we can step up signage or flashing lights or anything there that we can enhance that area so that, rather, with the absence of a crossing guard, at least, because nobody slows down. I mean, it's,
Everybody's in a hurry.
yeah, and I know we talked about even going to the state and asking them to reduce the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit coming into town there to even lower, you know, to try and
Yeah.
decrease the speed by the time they hit the school. And but that's it. That intersection with the hill and everything to the west is always one that concerns me. And you know, even when you're even driving, pulling out on there, you got to be so careful on people coming in from out of town from traveling from west to east.
I mean, this fall when we work on budget, we can pull numbers together and see if the budget can support
Yeah.
some signs that flash.
I think mechanical replacement is probably going to be the wave of the future there, unfortunately. Yeah, so. All right, just food for thought.
Yeah. So next, we got to approve the beer and liquor license.
I would like to make a motion to approve all the beer and liquor licenses listed, items A through H, pending all taxes, property taxes, personal property invoices, anything outstanding to the city.
Okay, I'll second that. A motion by Fooey, second by Schuster, to approve all the beer and alcohol license. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Next, we have discussed possibly action regarding library noise complaint. Guess the air conditioning unit, is there noisy there?
That's my understanding. It's about the air conditioning unit. I believe at one of your council meetings, it was said to be put on this agenda.
In public safety?
So I don't, it was in the minutes and sent to us that
Yeah.
it should be put on this agenda, so I don't know what.
I guess it falls under the nuisance ordinance, Dave, as far as, you'd be the governing body, or this would be the governing body to oversee, and be no different than a tavern playing absorbently loud music, you know, and having neighbors complain, so.
They
I
did
thought-
take readings, didn't they?
Yeah, apparently the homeowner bought a decibel meter and had readings up to 90 or something like that. I guess maybe Jeanette can address that.
I was gonna say, you had options that you talked about at the council meeting.
Yeah, so, we had, Scott with Public Works took our, I don't know if he purchased or borrowed a decibel reading, and I have handouts for you to look at. I know that the property owner took readings as well, and so, we can compare to see if the readings that were on our decibel reader are comparable to what was on that property owner's reading. What I'm handing out to you there is, these were taken on Tuesday, and you can see that Scott has the decibel reader and then the free app that you can get on your phone that just has decibel readings. And it looks like that they were pretty comparable. So the first upper left picture is right next to the AC unit that was running. We had to force it to run because it wasn't a super hot day. And then we backed up to the property line between the library and that property and took a reading. And then we were close to the patio of that property. And I know that at the Common Council meeting, the concern that was brought to you was that when they're using their patio, that the unit is running constantly and at a high level of decibels. So I'm not familiar with what, and when I looked at the ordinance, it didn't say necessarily like what level is considered, you know, a high level, a nuisance level. So that's for this committee to determine if these readings do fit that. I do know that the property owner has shared with me that the unit on the very, very hot days runs probably 50 of the 60 minutes each hour. We're a brick building. We do go to upon closing, we do go to a maintenance level of AC, but on 90, 95 degree days, it's running nonstop. So that's something that you can consider too. The other side of your handout is what has been purchased. And those are things that the HVAC person we contract with suggested as a start. Their springs, they just arrived last week. Then with the rain, they haven't been installed yet. But Public Works is going to install those, and then we'll do decibel readings again to see if they impacted that at all. So those have been purchased, and we're hoping that that helps. And then I have talked to my HVAC company, and they said that an enclosure would more than likely not solve the problem completely. If you're familiar with where the unit is, it's kind of in an alcove, and it's a brick building, and it may just ricochet. And then also he did research, and the particular unit we have does need a 3-foot clearance for circulation, and we've got a sidewalk and other utilities there. So one suggestion past this would be compressor covers. There's 2 compressors, and he said that those can be purchased. And so I think we're kind of thinking steps to see, but I would need your committee to say what's acceptable, what is, you know, what kind of reading are you wanting to see? And then of course, if we went further than the springs, which is what the library has covered the cost for, the compression covers are more significant of a cost. So then if we had to go to that level, you know, where those funds would come from. So I don't know if you have any more questions for me.
Did you get an estimate on how much the covers would be?
I do. There's 2, and they're $250 a piece. No,
So
$275 a piece. So that would be $550. And he actually, meaning the HVAC owner, said that I think would significantly decrease the sound as opposed to an enclosure. That was his suggestion if the springs aren't
Sounds like you're
successful.
definitely going down the right road.
We're sure trying. We want to be good neighbors, and we want to have people enjoy their outdoor spaces. Yeah. So I don't know if the committee needs more information from me. I don't know if there's any questions that you have for the property owner or myself.
I believe he reported readings of 90 plus, didn't he?
So that's what I wrote down, yeah.
Right, due to the fact that I'm not a HVAC guy or anything, but there's the two compressors. I only believe one's running right now due to the weather's not hot enough for both to be running now. From what I'm being told by a customer of mine for work, that those are two-stage compressors, and that one that's kicked in right now is only pulling the cool air in, because it's a
That
sealed
could be
building,
we-
until it actually
yeah.
gets to be 90 degrees where it's actually doing both compressors. That's where I got my 98, when that second one is running as well. And you can also see in the picture at top right, you can see it's awful windy that day, the flag's at full mast, so there would be less decibels in my yard. So, like I said, what I'm hearing is the two compressors, only one's running right now, I believe. And then once it hits 80 or higher, the other ones will kick in, and that's when I got my decibel reading.
So your comment about the windy day, these would be higher because of the wind then?
Would be lower. Yeah.
Not towards
Oh,
my house.
got it, okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's
blowing away,
okay, yeah. So I guess I would agree with that. We had to force it to kick it in, so you're right, it would have been probably at the lowest level of running.
And next week we'll have some 80-degree weather, hopefully. And then if a still, calm, cool day or hot day when there's no wind is the best time to get a reading if both compressors are kicked in.
So I think a good thing would be, do you still have your decibel reader?
If I'm not mistaken, it is pretty similar, if
Okay.
not the exact same decibel reading machine that they have here.
So that's something we can do, when we feel that it's running at full capacity,
Sure.
get more readings. When the weather's cooperative, we have gotten these springs, so they'll get installed, and then we'll be able to at least hopefully get a before of full bore running, and then the springs and go from there.
Okay. Yeah, so get them installed and
Mhm.
warm it up, we'll see what reading,
Right.
see if it helped at all
Absolutely.
or not. And if not, then we'll go to the next step, I guess.
Mhm.
It covers it.
So then, would this be something that would be continued on the agenda, like an update at your next committee meeting? Or how do we proceed to communicate to you, or how do you communicate to us on
Do you know when these are
what
getting
is
installed or
acceptable?
not?
I do not. I'm assuming next week if the weather is cooperative.
Okay.
He was hoping to get them installed Wednesday before this meeting, but we all know how that weather was.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'd say get them installed and get another reading and
Mhm.
back on the agenda next month and see if it helped at all.
Mhm.
Go from there, I guess.
Take them on Monday or Tuesday when it's supposed to be 80 as well. I don't
Sure.
have a problem trying it. You
Yeah.
come out with me if you're there. and
Sure.
We can just do it together. That way we both got the number when it's hot
I
and
think
both
that
are running and
makes sense.
good to go.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Keep working on it, yeah.
Okay, we'll keep working on it.
There you go. Okay, thanks. All right, next we got discuss and possible action regarding traffic lanes, East Center and North Main.
Okay. The fact that Highway 26 is going to be repaved and they're gonna fix the intersection at East Center and 26 and then up at West North and then I think out by County Road DF to the north, that's where the actual repaving is gonna take place.
Okay.
Dave Grattan approached me with, how can we make the intersection at East Center Street better? And he can have Dave speak on that behalf. The thing that I was told from the state is, and Dave probably was told the same thing, is they want our city engineer to submit plans to them, and then they would take it into consideration. So that's why this is before this committee. If you guys feel that what Dave has to say is worth pursuing, we'd have to get our MSA, I suppose, involved, and that's gonna have to come out of somebody's budget. So that's what you guys are gonna have to make the decision on whether or not this is something that could work.
Mhm.
And do we wanna spend money to see if the state would even go along with the recommended changes? So I guess if you wanna have Dave speak.
Yeah, Dave?
to it.
Okay, try to do my best here.
Yeah.
I got the green card, and on the card, it had a website, and I was successful to get on the website, and for me, I thought that was pretty good. Anyhow, I got a hold of a gentleman on there, one of them was James Ottinger, and he lives, I didn't write down where he lives local, like off Lebanon Way, whatever, and I told him the intersection, he said, oh, I personally know that intersection. So I had measured the street. Center Street is 45 feet wide. I went across kind of in a couple spots, and then the North Main is 43 feet wide. So you're 2 foot narrower on Main Street. Well, the thought I have is on North Main Street, there's no parking in front of the barbecue place. And on Center Street, heading east, all the way downhill, there's no parking on the south. It's been yellow for years, so if we could push the traffic to the south a little bit when you're eastbound and gonna make a right-hand turn north, you'd have more room for the truck to get around the corner, but you can't go too far south, cause then when the truck's going, southbound east onto Center Street, that's where the engineers gotta come in. And you may need to move the center line on North Main Street over a jaunt to allow that truck to get around the corner easier and stay off the center line. He said that if we could have the engineer do a proposed drawing, that he would help push that along. He thought it was a good idea. He said he realizes that there are no accidents there that are serious. To have the county or state purchase the building and demolish it and make a nice corner there. So he said this would be about the only way to rectify it is to ease the driving lanes around a little bit with some paint. So that's where we're at, and I hope we can, I don't know how expensive it's gonna be, but,
Right.
you know,
You don't know quotes or anything, how much this would cost, or?
I didn't get a hold
Not
of the
really.
MSA, I suppose I should have, and asked them, I didn't think about that, it was just a proposal.
There is a lot of truck traffic there now, isn't there?
Yeah, with
Menards
Menards.
out here.
And moving the trucks a little further south when they're headed north, right-hand turn will get them off of those manholes, what they chewed up in the past.
Right.
So hopefully that would help rectify a city street problem as well.
I'm just wondering how you're gonna, with the reduction on the south lane on Center Street, how traffic going north, turning to the east, are gonna be able to make that turn without entering into the other lane or bumping their wheel over the curb,
Yeah, just no
going around
parking.
the courthouse courthouse admin building there.
Yeah,
I drive something pretty long, so I know how that goes, you gotta swerve to the west to be able to make the turn to the east and whatever, and so I can see you possibly running into a case where they'd probably nix it because of the fact that you'd have potential traffic heading east, jumping into the driving lane, going straight to the west there. What you drew here, Dave, is very good. This would be probably, all you'd have is an engineer stamp on it. Turn it over to them, but I don't know the likelihood. I think the chief can tell you the gauge mark for doing anything is always about an accidents you have. Is it not correct, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the DOT tracks all that, and it's based upon the number of accidents and serious injuries and that. If we had a way to record close calls, that
Yeah.
intersection would have been rebuilt 30 years ago.
Yeah, there's probably a near miss every hour.
Yeah. We have had rollover accidents up there.
Yeah, we have.
So,
Well, with Mr. Ottinger's personal knowledge of it, how poor the situation, the intersection is, he felt that he could help pursue that along with engineered drawings that may be accepted and may be rejected. You know,
Yeah, that apartment building does pose a sightline problem.
right.
Big.
What if you eliminated that boulevard on the south side of the street? Made the street a little wider, right up to the sidewalk like the front of the building is.
Yeah.
There's a 3-foot boulevard there with grass. On the south side of the intersection.
Okay, big sidewalk and curb all one.
All one, yeah, just like the front of the building.
Is there a power pole on that side?
There's a tree right on that.
There was a guy pole there.
I believe it was, yeah.
That guy pole
It's not there anymore.
Not there anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
So the new sidewalk would be right next to the road. Just like the front of the building.
Yeah.
Like on Oak Street. You know, there is no boulevard in the front of that building, it's just parking stalls.
Well, and on the front of that building on Main Street
That's what
as
I'm
well.
saying, East Oak.
No, up on North Main as well.
There's parking there.
No, the sidewalk hits the curb. There's no boulevard when you go around the corner on North Main Street.
Until
You
you-
go from
the old
Center
doctor.
Until you get up to the
North Main.
driveway.
Until you get up further to the,
Yep. Yep.
that first.
They've got a
12.
12-foot wide sidewalk, or 10-foot wide sidewalk.
10.
going up.
So I guess the question comes down for this committee is whether or not you want to forward this on to MSA and how much money you're willing to spend.
Are
on a
they
maybe.
doing curb work there?
No,
So then it adds to the project.
or
period.
to add to somebody's
Right.
cost, which probably would be our
That
cost.
would be our cost.
For if you started moving curbs.
Right.
We were responsible when the Highway 26 was redone in 2001, 2002. The city was responsible for the parking lanes and the state took care of the driving lanes.
Yeah.
I think that's the view they still have when it comes down to maintenance on storm sewer risers, sanitary sewer risers, because we've had our issues with them being blown out because of the semis turning, you know, and putting that stress against the casting that comes up through the road there. Thank God it's concrete.
Yeah.
And if it was blacktop, we'd be having even more issues because that's gonna move around in the heat of the summer, so. I don't oppose the idea, Dave, I just don't know how, you know, we could spend some money and now, you know, get the next there too, you know. I guess what we probably do is propose, get a hold of Jason Lau and ask for an estimate, and essentially he'll take your drawing here and probably try to put it in a formal setting so that it can be forwarded to the state. They're gonna want a PE stamp on it, I imagine, before they even crack it open and look at it. Whatever, so. Unless we take all the courthouse lawn and make a turnabout there, I guess that'll be the only way we could survive it there, so.
Be cheaper to buy that building than to tear it down.
I guess, John, if you wanna forward that to finance or whatever, if, you know, and we can.
Yeah, I guess we could forward the finance, see if they can find some money for some, look into it. anyway.
Couple months we'll be in the budget cycle again and whatever, if it doesn't happen this year, maybe we can make something happen.
They're
in
doing
23.
26 this year, Dave?
Do we wanna
No.
go
No.
to Jason first before 2025?
2025, I
Sure.
believe.
Oh, so we got,
That's-
we got some time then.
Yeah, 2025.
Make that
Yeah.
motion that you
Right.
forward to the MSA.
I would make a motion that we,
Yes.
forward it to, or ask Jason at MSA for an estimate before we, would forward it to finance.
I would second that.
Okay, motion by Evans, second by Foodie to send it to MSA for a estimate on the price. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. See what happens. Next, we have discuss and possible action regarding property nuisance ordinance enforcement at 328 and 330 South Fairfield Avenue, where had the house fire last year.
So one of the property owners is here that owns the south side. I tried reaching out to the owner on the north end, sending text messages, phone calls, with no return whatsoever. I don't have any type of forwarding address. I did reach out to American Family, talk to their claims manager. That claim is settled as far as they're concerned. They paid her out. And there's $7,200 that American Family is hanging on to yet that would go for the demolition. And if the city was to do that, that money would be paid directly to the city from American Family. So that's kind of where we're at, and you can call upon this gentleman to
Sure.
speak about what he has going on with it.
So my name's Asher Rosenberg, Mandy Rue, we're the people that lived at 330 South Fairfield, the south side. Right now, as far as the estimates have gone for demolition, we've had the estimate since November. I just contacted all the companies because we have 3 estimates. Obviously, fuel costs are quite a bit higher now, so we got more recent numbers. Estimates to do both properties is one demolition is $25,000 to $30,000 range to remove foundation right now. We've been trying to reach out to Devon as well, the property owner that owns 328. Obviously, we have to have permission to have the demolition company go onto her property because of the zero lot line property issue, as well as sign a liability waiver. If we tear down the wall, it's on the zero lot line. If we damage 2 inches into her side, that could be a potential lawsuit. So we have to have some sort of formal notice. Either the city's gonna have to do something, or we have to get a hold of Devon to give permission and her blessing. I mean, we know we're gonna be eating a nice cost of this out of the demolition. I mean, you're looking 15,000 roughly aside for the demolition and removal and fill. Our insurance is covering about $7,000 of that as well, so appropriate cost wise. So I mean, she's gonna be on the hook for 7,000 plus whatever interest is. So that's what the city would be looking with if they proceed to step in on that. I mean, we're ready to do it. Like I said, I'll have more estimates by the end of this week because I've called to get them to refresh all the numbers because we've been sitting since November, and the fire investigation completed in February timeframe. So then we had to wait on the ground thaw. So we would like to see it torn down just as soon as everybody else, but our hands are kind of tied. So
What is your ultimate plan if you tear it down and remove the foundation?
as of right now, it's gonna sit as a lot. I mean, I don't see feasibly having plans drawn to build another house on there. Possibly look at an investor to take it and maybe rebuild it as the zero lot line property again. We've talked to some people about that. When they looked at demolition costs, they backed away from it, for the cost of the lots. The other part we were looking at is possibly taking over Devon's side of the property as well and combining it into a single lot again, but that would be something to approach the city to go from a zero lot line 2 lots to a single lot right now. So, I mean, it would be time before we built a house back there, so.
I'm just wondering why you're taking down the foundation. I think there's a potential to build up on top of the foundation, is there not?
There is. Our foundation would still be fine. Last we entered the property, there's still no water buildup, it's still flowing. That's obviously very unclear on Devon's side. I know she's had plumbing issues on the north side property before, so anything could have happened over winter with the amount of water that was in that basement. If it never drained out, it was a poured concrete foundation. So that is a possibility, but when we asked the city building inspector on whether or not we needed to have the foundation torn out or not. We never got a response, so we just proceeded with demolition on, overall demolition on it.
So what would be your ultimate goal? Do you just wanna walk away from that property? Is that what, and I guess is what I'm saying is, or asking, I guess, you're between a rock and a hard place when you're dealing with a neighbor that's on a 0 lot line, I understand that.
Correct, and I don't think they're, realistically, unless you get cooperation, I don't think there would be enough room to even shift a property, a house of decent size, over to center onto that property because of the width of the property. Otherwise, we'd be getting too close to the limits of the property line to go. It'd have to be a long house and not very wide. So ultimately, our hands are kind of tied. Right now, it's one step at a time. I mean, it's demolitions are what we're trying to accomplish now. Ultimately, we don't know. I mean, it might be just a lot that's a vacant grass lot, and we'll have somebody do lawn service and snow removal. But I mean, we want to at least get it knocked down. We know it's a nuisance and it looks bad. So obviously, it's been a long time coming, but like I said, our hands are kind of tied unless we get support from the city to start taking an action, or we can get a hold of Devon. Last we knew, she was still staying at that Holiday Inn in Beaver Dam. So, and you're talking, the house fire was August 17th. So, if her insurance is closed out, that money's gonna dwindle pretty fast, staying at a hotel that long.
My conversation with our city attorney was the fact that the only intervening action that we can really take is condemnation of her half. And, you know, you'd spend that $7,000 in a hurry by the time you get through the legal process and what have you there, so. I was just kinda curious, you know, being in the construction business myself, I think that foundation could be salvaged, and I think a very nice single-family home could be put up there with a little design help or something like that, so.
We're
But-
willing to listen to suggestions on it, so I
Right.
mean, and we're willing to find other estimates, but like I said, that's where we've been at price ranges, that $25,000 to $30,000 for the removal and backfill.
And with our zoning, you can build an R1, single family on that R2 zone lot, you're able to do that,
Okay.
so. Yeah. Guess I'll take it up with the building inspector and see if I can find out a little more information for you.
Okay, like I said, I put a
Dave-
request in back.
Dave's got all your
in September.
contact information, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's been going, it'll be August, it'll be a full year.
A year,
Correct.
so you're in no contact with the other at all,
No,
No help?
we've tried to get a hold of her, we left messages.
Nothing.
We haven't spoken to her since, I wanna say September or October of last year. Would be the last that we've talked to her. Her brother-in-law and sister were supposed to handle her affairs on it. We haven't been able to reach them either. So they do live in Beaver Dam area. So I guess if you would like that information, we can give it
Yeah,
to them that way.
if you got that information, that'd be helpful.
Sure, we can forward that over tonight to you.
Okay, good, yeah, cause I'll definitely be taking a trip to Beaver Dam to the Holiday Inn.
huh? Yeah.
I'll stay overnight.
So really what it comes down to, and I know the mayor said that he talked to the attorney, but if we wanna keep this moving and get this rectified, the city may and most likely will have to get involved. So I guess what I'm looking for is direction as to working with the city attorney with our current ordinances to see what we can do to move this forward.
When I approached the attorney the first time on this, I asked him to research what other communities had, particularly Watertown, where he's based. He kinda came back surprised that there wasn't, you know, and I would've thought that every community would have like a 6-month timeline from an incident like a tornado or a fire or whatever, that at least sees 50% progress on rebuilding or something like that. We've been looking at a burnt site there for 10 months now or
Coming up
whatever.
on a year,
so,
nothing,
you know.
nothing at all has been done, right?
No.
Not even any
Yeah.
cleanup at
No.
all been done, you know, so.
Because I had DPW cut the grass this, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, so I would imagine we're gonna be cutting the grass hole somewhere along too.
That would be on 328, correct, or?
Right.
Okay, because I was gonna say, our agreement with our neighbor right now is they're mowing our grass to park in the driveway and handling snow
Yeah,
removal for us,
it
so.
was just on,
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we were handling it until we can do more. We'll probably leave it as a parking slab right away to continue that arrangement, I mean, while the driveway cutout's there, so.
And obviously, you're gonna receive a discounted tax bill, but you're still gonna be paying taxes on your half as well as her, you know.
Correct, yeah, I mean, we already got an adjustment on the taxes, but still, with, what is still existing on the property is what their adjustment was, so. There still is improvements according to the, county assessor. Tax man always wins, I guess.
Suppose you could use the bathtub in the basement, Just bring your own water.
I hear it's there.
I wouldn't go in the basement now of either of them. It was pretty bad the last time we were there.
It will become a issue pretty shortly, cause the mold was starting to get pretty bad
It was,
last time.
and black mold, it was
Bye.
bad.
Plus, we're inviting infiltration into our sewer system.
Correct.
Those floor drains aren't plugged in that basement. They might be plugged with debris, I don't know, but.
Ours is still open last we were in there.
So,
which
you know,
didn't-
that's
probably 2
taking,
months
that's
ago.
taking rainwater, everything else into our sanitary system, which we do not want, so.
I mean, under our public nuisance ordinance, there's areas in there that certainly could apply, that hopefully the attorney can work with. And
If it's okay with the committee, maybe myself and Chief Beal and city attorney can sit down and have a meeting, maybe we can agree on a lawsuit type situation as well, where we go private individual to pay and try to recoup the cost, by taking over the property there as well. If we can still arrange the payments out of American Family.
Did you research your restrictive covenants of your zero lot line agreement?
No.
I piloted that. I got that, I built those duplexes on the middle block of Fairfield. And we adopted City of Beaver Dam's ordinance on there. And that, you should have got a booklet of restrictive covenants that states everything from if you can't get along with your neighbor, when it's time to reshingle the roof, a city official will make that determination and you will both oblige by it. I'm just wondering what the language, I could dig up in my files to see what the original agreement was, but that was supposed to be anytime a zero lot line constructed dwelling was put up, that was supposed to be in the hands of the new owners.
Well.
And whether you ever saw that document or not, that specifies everything from the one side can't put in different colored siding than the other side and what have you, and it spells it all out.
Well,
And
we
I'm
can
wondering if there's stuff
access
in
that
there, so.
somewhere, I mean, we'd be more willing to research it.
Our city attorney would have that on file, at least, our prior city attorney always had it on file and whatever for people to be able to refer to it when there was a dispute or a disagreement on that, so. That might be the place to start, Dave. There might be some language on as far as demoing of a property that got destroyed by fire or whatever, you know, so.
what was that called again?
Restricted covenants for a zero lot line dwelling. That included the construction right from the ground up about fire stop in the attic, you know, versus a standard duplex. You have to do more for fire stop in the attic and whatever, which was done correctly because I viewed yours and made sure that that was done right and whatever. So that was a drywalled surface on both sides of your fire break in between, and fire rating between your basement common wall from one side to the other and whatever. That's all spelled out in there. I don't remember if that was addressed for something like this, but I think it was. So maybe you get that document, you might have some legal bite in your bark.
Okay.
Place to start.
Yeah.
Because that's something you would have entered into or would agreed to at the time you purchased that property. Because you weren't the first owners of that property, you know.
No, we were the fourth owners of that property.
Would that be on file with the Register of Deeds?
Could be, but it's certainly in part of our city ordinances. Dave, you're pretty good at researching them. Do you ever remember coming across some of that?
I have no reason to look at this, yeah.
And I remember what they put into our ordinances, I had to read everything to compare them to make sure it was being, put in correctly
Right.
when it was codified. I remember when you were saying that,
Yep,
reading very specific language.
91 is when I built the first one, and I actually went over and got beaver dams. And then Joe Shasha was the attorney at that time, Judge Shasha, and he drafted it to what, you know, very few changes, but drafted it to the effect that it was gonna work for the city of Juneau. So that should be on file someplace.
So, need another direction, Dave, or
Well,
I guess check with the lawyer and,
I mean, if nothing else, it's awareness that this committee knows and that the full council can be made aware that if we move forward with this, potentially it's gonna cost the city money. And you guys have to be okay with that. Because at some point you have to give the order as to, are we gonna condemn it and tear it down or not knowing what direction it's gonna go into. So as a committee, you guys need to be aware, and the full council needs to be, and you guys have to be on board with it.
yeah.
Well, absolutely, and those costs are gonna be levied against the property, just so you know. And I feel bad for you folks, because you're the innocent party here, and what have you. But that's gonna be levied against the party and put on the tax rolls, you know, whatever, so. But if it gets you off dead center, I'm sure you're willing to accept that, you know, so that you can move forward with your lives and, you know, take it from there. So.
Were the taxes paid on the other half this year, you know, or not? You don't know.
I had the same question, we've already paid our taxes for
Yeah,
this
you
year.
probably paid yours, but I wonder,
Yeah, we don't know, I mean, otherwise that'd be another aspect to go
yeah,
after.
check, I
is-
guess, see if taxes are paid on it.
Well, they got, end of July, isn't it, July 31st to get their second half
Well,
paid?
see if they paid the first, yeah, first half got paid.
So, but what is that, a 3-year process with?
Before it goes to the county.
Years and then foreclosure.
I don't think we wanna.
I don't
do
think
that
we'll wanna
one.
be looking at it
Yeah.
for 3 years yet.
No.
So,
Just something for a little more leverage, maybe.
I can't imagine all the bills for snow removal and lawn care have been paid that the city has provided, so.
But those are
Wasn't
all,
large and.
those are all assessments that be levied against the property before it can be sold, so, you
Yeah.
know, unfortunately, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place, but we'll certainly do whatever we can do to help you out and keep things moving. Cause we want it cleaned up. I mean, I wouldn't wanna.
So do
live-
we wanna be done with this.
I wouldn't wanna live across the street and look at that every day when I get up, and you got some pretty nice homes right across the street from you as well, so.
So you're gonna go to Ramsey, you gonna contact with her, Dave, or?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she doesn't
Start.
respond to text messages
Right.
or phone calls. Typically, you get somebody to respond to a text message, but it's her voice on the voicemail, so
Yeah.
I know I got the right number yet. It's still a good number,
Right.
so.
He said he's gonna give you some names for relatives or something, see what.
They
But-
said they were the caretakers of her, estate before, so.
Sure.
Cause I mean, if she's been paid out, she should have monies available, plus the 7,200 that American Family has held back.
Yeah.
So. But we can't just sit back anymore and wait for something to happen,
No, we gotta move forward with this,
so.
get it cleaned up. Okay, there you go.
I don't know if you wanna make a motion that directs me to pursue action against that property, so it's at least in the form of a motion, so that later on when the bills come in, be it from the attorney or whatever direction it goes, everybody is well aware that, you know.
Well, I guess we gotta do something with this, yeah. We'll make a motion, let Dave keep going on this and see if he can get some answers from the property owner.
Right now, what costs are you thinking the city would be if we're just contacting the owners and, I mean, we're not starting the condemnation process yet. I mean,
Well, just say we get a hold of the owners
okay.
and they say whatever. How long are we gonna wait then? Another 3 months, 6 months, a year before?
Yeah, maybe get a lawyer involved or something.
That's what I'm saying, we're gonna have to start talking to the city attorney and see
And-
what steps we need to take next, so that if it does end up in court, that we need to get an order to raise it, we're in a position of power to do that. Otherwise, this summer's gonna be gone, and the house is still gonna be sitting there.
There's gotta be process serving fees and whatever to file papers
And the lawyer would be taking a look at those restrictive covenants
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So right now, as soon as I contact the attorney, that's where we're gonna start to see costs.
Well, I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, we gotta move on, I think, here.
It's
so.
gotta be done.
I'll second your motion, John.
All right, motion by Schuster, second by Fooey, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Dave, anything else? I guess let us know.
Okay, yeah, that.
You got anything else?
That should be all I have. You can move on to EMS now.
Okay, Dan, EMS
All
report.
right, so you have my monthly report for March. There was 44 calls for the year 2022 compared to 35 for 2021. I did put the report of hours on there, as you can see what the members did for hours. Well, they must like me, I guess.
Trying to listen to Dan's report, or?
Feels bad.
Feel bad.
You're leaving too?
Then you have the report for April. There was 23 calls compared to 29. Then you have the report, the hourly report, and then I gave you another sheet there stapled to that shows you the hours that the members put in that they got paid for. Be stapled together.
Mhm.
Way at the end on that sheet, you'll see it. And this, looks like this is for April and it's stapled together. That one right there, yeah. So that shows you the hours that the members put in. So this one shows you the hours that they signed up for, and that one shows you the hours they're actually on the call for, so. Any questions on that I would answer, or get you an answer for? April was a nice month, we were a little, got to take a little breath, but we're back in it.
How are you doing on members?
I got a new member signed up, that wants to go to class, and I'm working on 2 other ones, so I might have 3 in school next fall, so
Good.
that is a good thing.
Do they serve as drivers then, for
Yep.
right now?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's good. So this is what you said are the actual hours?
Should be stapled to the back of that one copy.
Is this the actual hours?
No,
Hold on.
it looks,
Right there.
so this is the hours they signed up for,
That's
That's
what-
what they-
this is the hours they actually were on.
That's fine.
So I'm gonna keep doing that every month after now, so you get to see both.
Set up City Hall.
So they actually worked us then, is that right? Cause I have the total,
So that's-
like 78,
So that's the hours that we were on a call.
right, 78
So
hours.
that's when the pager goes off,
Mhm.
when the pager goes off, the clock starts. That page, that front page there, that's the hours they sat and waited for a call to go off. So that's when,
Your
that's when.
time on
Your
call.
time on call.
I'm not
so-
questioning
Right,
how
right,
it's
I'm
done.
just trying to
I'm
explain it
saying
to you.
what are the
Yep.
hours?
So the hours are when the pager goes off,
So the total hours scheduled, is that correct to say
Yep.
1796?
Yep.
And then the actual hours paid out or whatever
On
on
call,
call and
yep.
is 78?
Yep.
Wow.
The rest of the time they're sitting.
Sitting there, yep.
Well, you're on a whole night,
A lot of
and you
commitment.
might not get
Yeah.
a call.
True
Yeah.
dedication.
But you still
there
have to be
to
there.
Stay.
You still have to be ready to go.
Yeah, so I mean, you might be on call all weekend, and not get a call from Friday night till Monday
So
morning.
they don't get, you get paid on call? though,
There's
right?
you get paid on the call.
Oh,
We
on the
get-
call, not
We get paid a
on call.
stipend every year, like, and for EMTs, like $1,200, but I guess you could figure that per hour,
Okay.
per whatever, and come up with whatever the hourly rate is.
Because
per
you're not
week.
getting paid if you're scheduled, you're just sitting at home.
You're just sitting at home, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're kinda getting
You
paid, I
can't
think it's like
really go
25 cents an
Yeah.
hour or
Yeah,
something, but
minus
I mean,
25 cents.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Right.
I just want to understand it.
yep. No, whatever it is. Any questions on the monthlies? And then I got the annual, and so it's gonna be a piece of paper that looks like this. This is basically that's telling you what our revenues were from just on our calls. So this does not include the contract with the town of Oak Grove, the contract with the town of Clyman, Village of Clyman, town of Hubbard. So this is basically just all the calls that we were paid out to go on. And then this sheet here is the number of calls we were on, kind of the one with the, looks like this. We had 446 calls last year, so. And this kind of breaks down payees, and if you have any questions on there, I'd be more than happy to get you an answer if I can't answer it for you. The last page kind of tells you, the payer groups, so like Medicare, Medicaid, private, that kind of thing, so. Workman's comp, that kind of thing, so. I tried to make that a little smaller so I can make it so it tells you what time of the day, what day of the week. I mean, it's all on the computer, so you can pull out whatever you want, and I can make this, 50 pages thick if you just want. So any questions on that?
You got an updated agreement?
Yeah, so I got a new mutual aid agreement with the City of Beaver Dam Fire Department. We did this back in 2020. They have a new chief now, and I'll have to have the mayor sign this because he signed the last one for it. But basically, the biggest change on this agreement is back in 2020, so when we call for a paramedic intercept, so let's say dispatch called or somebody called, they need paramedics, and we cancel them, we still got a $350 bill. So this new contract is saying, third party calls, we cancel, we're not gonna get that $350 bill because they didn't, we canceled them in wrong or something, so. So that's basically the biggest part of this is, yeah, and we pay the intercepts out of these, so that LifeQuest takes care of all that for us, so I don't get a bill from them like for intercepts. It's just absorbed out of the cost from LifeQuest, so. And I'll get a copy of this, when the mayor signs this, and I take it to Beaver Dam Fire Chief, I'll get a copy for City Hall, and I'll have a copy for myself, so. That's all I had, if there's not any other questions.
We don't have to do a motion on that or anything.
No, we had this from 2020, I mean, it's just a kind of a standing, they're basically just saying we're not gonna charge you for canceling.
It's a positive change.
Yeah, it's a nice
It's a
change.
good thing, yeah, saving money. All right, we got any questions for Dan?
Just want to commend Dan for the amount of hours that he puts in being EMS coordinator. It's a true sign of dedication to see the kind of time that he spends, and I think we owe the county a big thank you for allowing him to leave his job during the workday, because that's a big plus, right there.
The county changed that about 8 months now, so, I mean, anybody that on the fire, usually without,
Yep.
before we used to,
Yep.
there was, they had something to do with the CARES Act, I think, or something, there was something that they made that, they're letting us do it, so.
Yeah.
I think they recognize the shortage of EMTs and
Yes.
Yeah.
emergency
Firefighters, yeah.
workers in
Got a number we
general.
write down in our
Yeah,
card?
yeah, and that's it, so,
Yeah,
in the past, they used to take contract for it.
yeah. Yeah, vacation or
Vacation or whatever.
Vacation,
thanks.
And Jane, you asked some valid questions there, and I don't think most of the public understands that when these guys are on call, they're confided or are required to stay within the city limits of Juneau or with a 6-minute
Yeah.
response. That's some real dedication. I mean,
Yeah, they're
you-
really
from
not
Friday
getting
night
paid.
through
No.
Monday morning, that you gotta stay put and not go anywheres and what have you, unless you got somebody to cover for you and what have
Yep.
you. Yeah, it's a real commitment, there's no two ways about it.
We have been working pretty well with Warcom. We did sign some agreements, what was that, about 6 months ago or so? So, when I'm short, they cover, and when they're short, I cover, and so. And that saves us a little money too, because if I have to have BRAM come in and cover me, that's $890 a call, so besides what they charge the patient, so. That's if I don't have a crew and I gotta call them in. So that does happen once in a great while, but between me and Warcom, we've been covering it pretty well,
Covered.
so.
Yeah, good. All right, thanks, Dan. Next we have Kurt, Fire Chief, monthly report.
All right, report I handed out, we had 16 calls in March and April. I believe we have one of the nuisance ones, I'll say it's, what was it, North False Alarm, 261, 251. They had, I believe they've done service on their alarm system, so it was a little bit to get a hold of them. Other than that, we had mutual aid calls, a little bit of everything. Fires, accidents.
All right, any questions for Kurt? All right, thanks, Kurt. We move on to Dave, Emergency Government Director, monthly report.
I just got one thing, it's more about the building than anything. So last year, when we did budget, we approved blacktopping and putting curb in for the parking lot.
Mhm.
That's moving forward. Last year, when I received the quotes for budget purpose, the concrete work is gonna remain the same for what they quoted. The blacktop, was increased by $4,665 from the quote. But when you consider diesel prices and
Is
everything.
that based on a percentage, did you look at that or not? Do we know what the percent is that it went up? How much was the original quote?
66,000.
Okay, that's not too much.
So now it's up to 70,665. So with that said, between the concrete is $6,050. So Renner Construction is set to do the concrete work, and Northeast Asphalt will do the parking lot, and they'll fit it into their schedule when they're in town doing other projects. Total cost is $76,715. We had 80,000 budgeted, so we're still within
Is there a clause for subsurface work in that contract? Did you read through that?
There was, that they would factor that in, yep,
No, so no add-ons,
no add-ons.
just all inclusive bid. Good.
Hopefully there isn't a bunch of soft spots, but.
Yeah, that's gonna be done this summer.
Yeah, but when you, especially if you look, when it's dry out and our grass is more brown than green, you can see that we have a constant water problem around this parking lot on
Yeah.
the west side.
It's always wet, the grass is always wet over there.
It's always nice and green up in this corner, and
So they're gonna put curb all the way along? How about on the end?
they're definitely going down
To the corner maybe?
to this corner
Okay,
so that we avoid the breakout of the
okay.
parking lot, and then they're going to, that includes blacktopping that gravel portion
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Because just for the simple reason that when they turn the corner with the snowplow, if they dig into the
Yeah, just
one or the other, they peel the blacktop off.
like pile it here at the end of the.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
that's all I have for updates for that.
Okay. What we got for future agenda items?
Oh, we'll keep on
I guess
the
we-
library, right?
Yeah, we wanna definitely put the library on to get them, keep the noise.
And then we'll look at the, traffic lanes in East Center and North Main.
Yeah. And hopefully Dave has a report on the house. Fairfield Avenue.
Yeah, just so you're clear, Dave, this wasn't sent to public safety, the air conditioning issue down in the library wasn't sent to public safety for a solution. It was sent here for enforcement, you know, that's why it wound up in your lap here, because, I didn't wanna say it out loud, but I thought that 70 decibels and above is where you have to take action, but maybe I'm wrong on that. you
We
know.
don't have a decibel.
No,
rating.
I mean in general,
Yeah.
for, you know,
But our ordinance has nothing to do with decibels.
yeah.
That's very subjective as to where you take the reading from, and look how they had two different readings, one was at 90 and one was at
Yeah.
70.
Mhm.
So, yeah, our,
It probably bears a little research though to see what an acceptable decibel level is.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
well, and I guess that'd be the HVAC manufacturer could tell you what a system should operate at, what would be the.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking as far as, in general, you know, what would be a nuisance level?
Right.
I mean, we live behind Millbrew and there's a constant noise.
When the
there.
bearing went out on that, motor that time.
Oh geez,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was terrible.
Remember that. When they built that new addition on
Yeah.
Cynthia, that time we were.
In addition,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I tend to disagree with the fact you put up a barrier, you know, there, that is gonna make
Well,
a
like you
huge
said, it's a brick
difference. I
building,
mean,
it
That too,
I
send
mean,
the
you,
noise
even,
up.
I don't care if there's a brick wall behind it. I mean, it made a world of difference when Sensian planted those trees and those shrubs all the way across there. They cut the sound down considerably. And if you would make a man-made barrier the width of that unit, I think you'd be shocked on how much you'd cut the noise down, you know. You know, you'd still stay 3 feet away, like they said, for airflow, but just building something higher than the unit, you know, 4 or 5 feet higher than the unit, and just going past a couple feet, I think would make a huge difference.
But the cover for those the prices for those two covers, that's not a
That's-
bad, I was expecting her to say a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm wondering
if
if
they
there's
think that would definitely,
I'm wondering if there's a decrease in efficiency though, when you pad them and then close those housings like that, there might be, you know, it's definitely gonna affect airflow a little bit there, I would think, but.
how old is that library? 30 years?
Oh, they're probably due for new air
Yeah.
conditioning units, but, you know,
Original equipment.
yeah, they've already done one boiler.
They're talking windows.
I know it's not 30 years old.
321 North Street from that.
329 North Fairfield.
For what?
Fire cost.
Fire alarm again?
No, 329, that'd be residential.
Yeah.
That's kind of set up this special city call for Juneau Fire and Juneau EMS. You're needed in area 329 North Fairfield Avenue.
North and Victory.
329 North Fairfield Avenue, across West North Street and Victory Street. Callers advising they can smell gas in the area. They cannot smell it inside of the building, just outside. Down 1948 KY46.
Regulator malfunctioning someplace there.
Okay, and then, for future event, agenda item, we wanna put that chicken ordinance, you guys wanna talk about that? Yes.
Are we gonna like look at other cities, what they have for ordinance, you know, review some of these things, what do we do to be fair, I guess, well,
Waupun took over a year debating their issue before they finally gave in, so I don't know if you wanna review theirs or. That's probably the most recent one that approved chickens was
Yeah.
Waupun.
I think it bears research. Researching.
Yeah, do some research, and I don't know who that was that thought, I mean, invite her along, I mean, she seems very up now, to know what's going on, and maybe she has some information from different cities and that, so.
Well, we can gather other ordinances and then you guys can look at them. You know, and then what we did when we were working on the downtown sidewalk cafe and even extending like what the Rolling Stone did, that outside seating area. It is not productive to work on an ordinance and then bring it back to the committee and then have the other two members or whatever review it, because then it starts getting torn apart and you spend about 6 months going back and forth and members get upset with each other, whatever. So if you decide to do this, I would recommend that you set aside a night, call it a workshop, and you work on the ordinance.
Yeah.
That way everybody can be together at the table at one time and you'll get it done quicker and everybody will walk out of the room happy.
Yeah, the sidewalk ordinance did get beat to death for quite a while, so I agree with Dave on that. I guess this committee's should actually go on record if you wanna promote this. You know, type of thing, we nixed this a few years back when a party had actually started raising them and Dave had didn't ticket them, but made them aware that we don't allow this and what have you, so.
Yeah.
I'm not a Facebook person, but somebody had filled me in that it was about 4-1 against, just, there was 90-some the first day or two that this was put out there, and there was about 4-1 against having chickens allowed in the community. Like I said, I'm not a Facebook person, this is just secondhand information that was given to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people are interested in doing it if we did.
You're probably gonna get a handful, and you know, let's face it, Facebook is not how you should judge.
Nope.
Yeah.
Because anybody can comment on Facebook and they can live in Juneau, Alaska, which we have plenty of people
Sure.
commenting on our stuff here in Juneau, Wisconsin. And, you know, you get people that live outside in other communities, and there was so much bad information in that post. They were talking that a subdivision will allow it, and they were talking about the county and that we don't follow the county's zoning laws and that we have our own. But obviously the general public doesn't understand that. When they think of government, they just think of government as a whole and not the different entities that, you know, and we're a home rule state, so what our rules are gonna be different than others, so.
Yep.
And I think there's always the reality that it could be a novelty item too, you know, they start off raising them and a couple years, this is more work than what it's worth, or something like that too, you know, so.
You know, because anytime that we look at doing any changes to ordinances, you know, of course, you guys are familiar with the 2-month process. So it's not a quick thing, but more importantly, the cost associated with it. It's gonna have to be sent to the attorney. He'll have to review it, and then the codification of it is, I think, what is expensive.
Well, it just depends how long it is, but yeah.
So you could easily have $1,000 wrapped up in a, so if we do move forward, we wanna have it well thought out and not have to make changes to it 6 months later or a year.
Or you do a pilot program before you change the ordinance.
Wait, another pilot program.
They can pilot program,
I don't. But I think it's the civil way to do it, you know, before you get a lot of money tied up in it. And they said maybe there'll only be a handful of people who jump on board, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I guess think over the next month, we'll put on the agenda and decide if we wanna move forward or not, so. Can you get some information, Dave, on different, just,
Yeah, I mean, I can sit at my desk and pull it up on the internet and go to
we
their
get to print out some
website.
copies and we look at it.
You know, just like other people can go to our website and print off a copy of our ordinance.
Right.
That is the nicety of
Typed in
technology.
chickens.
Yeah, get some information together.
Clubs
Okay.
have chickens.
Any old business? Any new business? Time and date for next meeting is June 23rd, 6:30, Public Safety Building. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Schuster, second by Fooey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.